Brody Uttley from Rivers of Nihil, and this is Antihero Online.
So the big thing that we're here to talk about is the band's new album, Where the Owls Know My Name. Tell me a little bit about the record and what kind of went into creating this record for you guys.
Well, this is our third full-length record with Metal Blade Records. We have a seasonal concept that runs through all of our records. So on our first record, we had a spring concept. On our second record, we had a summer concept. And on this record, there's a fall concept. So this is the third of 4 in that series. It's coming out on March 16th of this year. And I don't know, we tried some new things on this record from our older stuff, and we released the first single last week, and so far it's been getting pretty good responses, especially considering we brought a saxophone into our music, which is, I thought it would get some backlash for that, but people have been pretty accepting and excited about it so far, so that's pretty cool.
What led to the addition to a saxophone in a metal band?
Honestly, I guess it was a couple of things. First off, I record bands on the side every now and again, and I was recording a band from our area called Burn the Empire, and their guitar player, he was going to school. He's a music major. He was going to school, but not for guitar. He was going for sax, like sax performance. And I had heard, from a couple people that he was really good, and I figured, well, I'm writing new material, so maybe I could just have him come over to my place one day and try a couple of ideas out. And he did that, and the ideas that he, laid down were really, really awesome, and everybody was really excited about it. And that, and also the fact that we're all like really big prog rock fans, the obvious stuff like Pink Floyd and King Crimson and Yes, and just bands like that that include lots of different instruments in their sound besides your conventional rock instruments. So that was definitely another inspiration, to make that move. But I would say mostly it was because, I became friends with this guy. His name is Zach Strauss. He's a young dude. I think he's only 20 or 21. And me and him just became friends, and I thought it would be cool to have him play on a record.
Now, with the incorporation of the sax on this record, it being your third album, the grand finale coming up with the fourth album, are you thinking about maybe incorporating a little bit more of the classical types of instruments on the last record?
Maybe. I think that now that we've brought, obviously there's only been one single released so far. I don't know when this interview is going to air, but by the time it comes out, the record might be released. On this record, there are many other less traditional instruments, cellos and trumpets and mellotrons and Moog synthesizers and all that kind of stuff. So we've kind of set a standard, I guess, where on our next record, on our fourth record, we would probably almost have to include stuff like that, just to, build on our already established sound. So I would definitely say that, people can expect to hear more of it.
Was that an idea that you guys walked into the studio kind of having, wanting to go bigger and better with this record?
How our process works is basically I write all of the music at my house. I have a recording studio at my house, and I spend, a year or a year and a half recording really intricate demos where I'll actually get, every single piece that's going to end up on the record, every instrument, and I'll have it all included in the demo stuff. So, we had a pretty clear picture about how things were going to sound when we went into the studio to record the final version, because I pretty much had everything demoed out exactly the way it was going to be at my house. I just, I did a lot of the keyboard type stuff myself, and I had a friend, this guy Sean, he played trumpet on it, and then Zach played saxophone, and I had my buddy Justin McKinney from the band The Zenith Passage and The Faceless. He does some guest work on the record, as well as Andy Thomas from Black Crown Initiate. So, we assembled all this stuff at my place before we even went into the studio, just so that we could walk into the studio and just, punch it out right away. So we had a pretty clear vision before we even walked into the studio of what we wanted, for sure.
And I just have to ask, with you, kind of laying the framework and the foundation with all of the instrumentation and writing the music, what musical background do you have?
I guess my earliest experience with music was with classical guitar, but I wasn't like trained classically. My parents just got me a classical guitar when I was like 7 or 8, and I kind of just messed around on that. And then I got into taking piano lessons for about 4 years until I played the piano for a while, and then I played the saxophone for a while. And then it wasn't until I was about 12 that I picked up the guitar and started taking lessons for that seriously. So, guitar's always been my main instrument that I've stuck with since, probably I was 11 or 12. But I did, like I said, I did piano and classical guitar and saxophone before that. So, I guess I have a couple of, different instruments that I've messed around with, but I just really, honestly, I grew up with parents that were really musical. My dad especially, he's like a huge record collector, and he always had really cool, like, behind the scenes documentaries about bands from like the 70s and 60s that I would watch just because we didn't have anything else to watch. So, I would watch documentaries about the Beach Boys or the Beatles or, stuff like that. So that kind of, I guess all of that really just contributed to me wanting to do all this stuff and, in my adult life.
And a lot of your musical background comes from the classical side. But what was the band or the song that kind of made you be like, okay, I want to play metal?
I guess my earliest, I was like real big into like 80s metal for a good couple of years in like junior high. I was real big into like Motley Crue and Guns N' Roses and Rat and Cinderella and Quiet Riot and like all that stuff. And then, because that's like guitar music, basically. Yeah. It's just like huge ripping guitar solos. And then I think it wasn't until I heard Lamb of God back in like 2002, 2003. I think I heard As the Palaces Burn, and that's what like really got me like interested in playing like heavier music, because Mark and Willie from Lamb of God, they're not like super shredder solo guys, but like their riffs are like basically shredding, and like I didn't understand that playing guitar could be about like killer rhythm chops too, as well as guitar solos. So I would say that like after I got out of like the hair metal kind of stuff, it was probably like Lamb of God that like got me going down the heavy metal tube really hard.
Who is your main influence as a guitarist? Like, who do you draw the most inspiration from when it comes to your style and the type of music that you want to create?
For lead type stuff and like composition wise, like probably like my oldest influences and probably my biggest ones are still like Steve Vai and Paul Gilbert and John Petrucci. Those guys are just like, when I got into like Steve Vai and Dream Theater and stuff like that, that's when everything kind of changed for me. So I would say like those guys for solo stuff. And then, I mean, as far as like, death metal guys that I really respect and I'm always drawing influence from, probably Vogue from Decapitated. I mean, first time I heard Organic Hallucinosis, I was just like completely blown away. Like I had never heard anything like that. So, even though, like my riffs, my writing isn't anything like Decapitated, I still like kind of try to draw from the energy that band created, especially on their earlier records. I try to draw on that kind of like energy and feel that those guys create, when I'm writing stuff, even to this day.
On this record, you guys reunited with Carson Slovak. What was it kind of like being back with him in the studio?
I mean, like, super easy, relaxed, and super natural. I mean, like, on these last two records, I've recorded the guitar and the bass at my studio, and then we go to his studio, which is only about half an hour from where I live, which is awesome because we don't have to, stay at a hotel then. We go to his studio and we do drums, vocals, and mixing there. So pretty much when we show up to the studio, I have the guitar and the bass completely done for the record. He just basically drops that onto his computer, and then we just start with drums. And it's like a super relaxed environment. Like we've known those guys for like probably 10 years or more. They actually recorded our very first EP back in 2009. So we're like super comfortable with those guys. They're like really like open to just about anything we want to do, and they're like really great musicians themselves, so they all their suggestions are always welcomed and really cool. So it's a very easy and natural thing recording with those guys just because of the history that we have together.
And with the fact that you actually record and mix your own music, is there ever any time where you find it kind of difficult to pass those reins over to someone else?
Not really. I mean, I don't mix anything. I just like record the guitar and the bass, and then they do all the mixing at the studio, and I'm usually there for the mixing stuff, so we like kind of team up on it. But I never have really, it's never really bothered me, or I've never really even thought about it. Like as soon as when I'm done with the guitar and the bass and I hand it over to them, it's just like, I mean, I trust those guys like, more than I would trust anybody probably with my music, so like they understand me and I understand them. And I think we have like a pretty good level of trust where I don't really need to worry about anything, like that.
Oh yeah, that's always a great relationship to have, especially with a producer that knows your sound. They know the direction that you're trying to go in, and if they have any suggestions, it's usually open air for you guys to kind of absorb and kind of go from there and grow.
Oh yeah, definitely.
What did you guys kind of take away from the previous two releases that you wanted to kind of incorporate or do better on this new record?
I mean, we're always just trying to write better songs. I think that's the main thing. I guess we're realistic about our expectations. Like we know, for a fact that we're never going to be the fastest band. We're never going to be the most technical band. We're never going to have the craziest guitar solos because there's just other bands out there that do that better than us. But I think one thing that we're pretty confident in is our ability to like write, songs that have good hooks and riffs that stick in people's heads. So I think that, every record we've just tried more and more to, get better at songwriting, really, not necessarily trying to play faster or more technical or, just crazier. We're actually like just trying to do what we're good at, which is, I guess, writing, songs that are catchy and stick with listeners. So I would say that, just seeing what works on, every record and what doesn't work, and just on each release kind of just refining our sound, really. I mean, I think we're just a metal band that wants to focus on writing songs that have good hooks and can stick with people and people can remember them. I mean, I think that's been our goal since day one, is just to write good songs.
And after the album is released on March 16th, is there a plan for a tour to go and kind of hit some places and promote the new record?
Yeah, actually, the day before the record comes out, we start a 5-week U.S. tour with Dying Fetus, Thy Art is Murder, Enterprise, Earth, and Sanction.
Nice.
Yeah, so it's all U.S. dates except for one date in Toronto. So that tour starts on the 15th of March in New York.
And what goes through your head when you're on a bill with bands like that?
I mean, you gotta I guess it's gonna sound silly, but I guess you just gotta act pro. I mean, you can't be screwing around. I mean, obviously, you got to have fun on tour, but I mean, you got to make sure that, nobody's getting drunk and doing stupid shit or playing poorly or forgetting stuff. I mean, you just really have, on a tour with bands like that, you just got to remember that, those bands are some of the best bands and the biggest bands in the genre for a reason, because, they're pro dudes and they're, great at what they do. So you kind of have to just try to do the same and remember, to have respect and not, walk on anyone's tail, really. You just being pro, really. I know it sounds silly, but you just gotta run a tight ship and just make sure your team is all on the same page, and you know what's got to be done, and you just do it.
Hell yeah. What does it feel like being signed to Metal Blade, a record label that has been at the front of the metal genre for a very long time and has seen so many successful acts come out of their camp?
I mean, it's awesome. I mean, we back in 2012 when we first started talking to Metal Blade, I mean, it was definitely a surreal experience for us because, we all grew up listening to bands that were on that label, and the DVDs, the Cannibal Corpse DVD and the Black Dahlia Murder DVD, we watched all that stuff, and to think that we were now all of a sudden, going to be on this label was it was an awesome feeling, because, I mean, to us, Metal Blade Records was always the obvious choice. If we could pick what record label we'd want to be on, we would definitely have all agreed on, on Metal Blade. So it's definitely, it was, a super surreal experience at first, but, now we're friends with everybody at the label, and we see them whenever we come through town, they hang out, and it's they're just people. They're more or less friends, I mean, so it's cool that that relationship has gone from being a very I don't know, we were, at the beginning we were terrified, but now it's we know everybody and we're real comfortable, at the label, and we really like everybody there, and they like us, and it's I don't know, it's just cool. It's a cool thing, definitely.
That's absolutely awesome, man. I love to hear stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's pretty much everything that I got for you, man. Is there anything that I didn't touch on that you would like to add?
No, not really. I mean, we kind of covered it all. I mean, the record's coming out on the 16th of March. We have pre-orders up on our indie merch website. Got a bunch of really sweet pre-order packages. We got guitar and bass tabs. We got drinkers bundles and different colored vinyl and all that stuff. So people can pick that up over on our indie merch store. And then we're leaving for tour for 5 weeks starting on March 15th. So, I mean, people should check the dates on our Facebook and see if we're coming through town, and if we are, they should definitely come out to a show.
And speaking of the social medias, where can people find you on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, if you even use that?
Yeah, we're on everything. I mean, we're on Facebook, Instagram, Rivers of Nihil, Twitter, Rivers of Nihil. Same thing on YouTube. I think that's it. Yeah, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. I don't think we did the Snapchat thing, but yeah, all the main stuff we're on there, so people can find us on all that.